Hey, welcome back. So, chapter 1, I will be a functioning member. I'll be honest, it just gets right down to it, and I love that. That's great. Not a build up, not a let me give you some softballs, real easy, just straight up. Let's start. Let's begin. This was really good, I thought. Just some highlights as we kind of go through it. Page 10, I laughed a little bit, not gonna lie, because this is, all these statements that were said, I've heard very similar ones in my lifetime. For those of you who don't know, I grew up Southern Baptist. I've been in Baptist churches my whole life. My dad was a minister, so good, bad, ugly. I've seen a lot prior to joining the ministry myself, and of course I've seen more since then. So some of these things that were said, yeah, that's not exaggeration. But I have got a question for you. Have you caught yourself saying some of these things? Because it happens. We get wrapped up in what we want, and we're not even really thinking clearly. Our emotions might jump on us, and we don't even realize the words have left our mouth. So just something to think about. Have you ever said one of these things? I would encourage you, as we're going through this, that might be a soft spot for you, right? I laughed because I've witnessed this, as off to the side. But I'll be honest, if I had caught myself saying these things, then I would have felt much differently about it. I wouldn't have laughed. So it might be, as you were reading that, you were feeling convicted because God was pointing out that you have been selfish in your membership. So here's what I want to encourage you with. One, it's right. If the past is past, and you can't do anything about it. So instead of harping on, this is where I messed up, start today with, how can I make today different, right? You've read the chapter, there's a pledge at the end, so you can think, what can I do today to be a better functioning member, and grow from there, right? So, because we've all messed up in one way or another, and I'm sure I might not have said those words, but I'm sure I've had those attitudes at times. So just be aware of that, right? And that's part of growing, and that's why we read these kind of books. That's why we discuss them, because God uses these times to convict us where we've messed up in the past, and so now we can move forward from that. But here's a question for you. So maybe you haven't said those things, but let's think about this. Right now, right, if somebody took a snapshot of your life, where are you at right now as far as member of the church, right? Not necessarily our church. Again, if you're not a member of our church, wherever you're going, right? Wherever you say you claim your membership is, where are you at in that situation? Are you the eyes, the body? Where are you at in the body? What part are you fulfilling right now? I would take a moment just to write. And again, it's not about a judgment. It's not about making you feel guilty that you should do more. It's just a simple, let's face reality and look at where we're actually at in not just our walk with Christ, but in our commitment and our community with one another. So where are you at right now? Next, right, he talks about 1 Corinthians 13. It's a beautiful chapter. If you haven't read it, you should definitely go back and read it. But he says, he talks about how it's often romanticized because it's read at weddings, right? Because the bride and the groom are up there and they're talking about love and they're in love and it's also pretty and sweet and whatnot. But what if we think about that chapter outside of that context, right? What about the mundane? What about the normal times? And if you think about in church life, right, in business meetings or household chores or whatever, how does that chapter apply to those times? Because I did a wedding for a couple, and I of course, you're going to use that chapter because everybody loves that chapter. But I talked about also that, you choose to love one another even when you're taking out the trash. You choose to love one another when you're picking what show to watch. All those mundane daily activities that we don't even think about, we just go through. That's where you can really demonstrate love to one another. So even in church life, Sunday after Sunday, Wednesday after Wednesday, or if you're in a small group during the week, right? How do you show love to one another in those times that get really routine? What else? Page 14. All right, page 14 in the middle, he says, we are not to love fellow church members just because they are lovable. We are to love the unlovable as well. We are not to pray for and encourage our pastors just when they are doing things we like. We are to pray for and encourage them when they do things we don't like. We are not to serve the church only when others are joining in. We are to serve the church even if we are alone in doing so. And then it sums it up. Church membership is founded on love, authentic, biblical, unconditional love. Again, it's a beautiful statement. And it's, we would all probably agree. We would all say, yeah, of course. We want to love one another. All right. But here's the challenge. It goes back to my original question. How are we doing that right now? Right? How, and when I say we can only think about ourselves in that, right? I can't make other people do what they should do, right? But I can definitely worry about what I'm doing and make sure that I'm doing the right thing. So if you missed that or you didn't highlight in your book, it might be something you want to write down. And then on 16, right, at the very bottom of 16, it goes into page 17. He says, one of the ongoing questions you should ask yourself and God in prayer is, how can I best serve my church? You should never ask yourself if you should be serving your church. If you are a member, you must be a functioning member. It's just that simple. That sums up the whole chapter. If you miss reading it, that's the highlight right there, right? Membership is being a functioning member. It's not just having your name on the roll. It's not just, well, I did this one thing a long time ago, so I'm good. Or I paid my dues, right? I served for years, so I'm good now. It's not how it works. Active members or functioning members, true membership, true biblical membership is a functioning member. And he goes into 17, he talks about inflated roles. I'll give you some real numbers right now. So we're in the middle, as of this video, right? We are in the middle of not purging our roles. I'm not trying to just gut the thing and throw out names, but really reflecting on who these people are that are on our rolls and where are they, right? Because if I take the list of names and everybody that's been marked as a member of the church, right? They're not dead. They're not moved away. They're a member of the church. And theoretically, they've been baptized and they're, members of baptism, which I'll be honest, I've seen a couple of names I kind of question on that because I've heard that they're not baptized. So got to wrestle with that pretty soon. But when I take all those names together, it's well over 200. It's like 250, 270 names. And the numbers changed since the last I looked at it. So that presents a giant question. Where are they? Because any given Sunday, when we're not in quarantine, we'll have, 50, 60 members, or at least attendance in the worship. So when he said that our church rolls are inflated by 3, that we're probably inflated by 4, to be quite honest. So, we're looking at that and addressing, where are these people? And a lot of it is just bookkeeping. There's a lot of names on there. They've just moved away and they haven't plugged themselves into another church. And so they're still on a roll. And so we'll filter those out as we go. But it addresses what we're dealing with, right? Because if they see membership as, well, that's just where my name is, and, I don't really have to do anything because, my name's there, then that's a problem, right? That's not biblical membership. So when you get in that section, you might think, well, that seems kind of, that can't be right. No, it's about right. And honestly, it could be worse. But like you said, it's hard to research membership. All right. So last, membership is being a necessary part of the whole, right? I want to kind of think about that statement for a second. Let that sink in. Membership is being a necessary part of the whole. Every member is a necessary part. God has plugged you into your church for a reason. And if you don't know that reason yet, now's a good time to figure it out. Because there is a reason that you're here. There is a reason that you're plugged in with a group. And it's because he has given you abilities and skills. He's given you a background and a knowledge that nobody else has. And he wants you to contribute to this local church with that knowledge. And that's going to play out in a lot of different ways, and we'll see some here. I will say this, a lot of people think right off the bat, well, for me to be plugged in, that means I got to lead a Sunday school group, and I don't want to lead a Sunday school group. If you go back, read Corinthians 12, 13, 14, some were made to be teachers. Some were given to be evangelists, some, right? And it's not that we should never do those things if we don't have those giftings, but there are giftings that you have that you should be using. So membership is being a necessary part of the whole. So the question is, what part of the local body should you be fulfilling? right? When I opened up, I asked, what are you doing right now? If they took a snapshot right now, where are you at now? Right? So now think in the future. Well, reflecting on 1 Corinthians 12, 13, and 14, reflecting on what I've read in this chapter, is there something that God is calling me to do that I have not done yet? This would be a good time to do it, right? So it's like I said, start day one, start now, and go from there. If you need help with that, let me know. I'll be glad to help you out with that. I love plugging people in. I love talking about what people have for their skills, their abilities. How can we all best serve the kingdom? And the reason I love that is because a long time ago, I had to do some own heart check in my own life and figure out that there are things that I'm really good at and there are things I'm not really good at. And I need people to help me out with those things that I'm weak in, because I'm growing in them, I'm getting better at them. But at the end of the day, each of us, we have a set of skills that we're wired with, right? God has created us a certain way. And the reason that we still have those weak points is because there's somebody else that can come along and fill in those gaps, right? Last thought, consider this. If you had your ideal pastor, right? He did everything perfectly, right? He visited those that needed to be visited all the time. He had wonderful preaching abilities. He did education right. He did everything that you can list. He did it all 100% perfect all the time. Then the question is, what would you do then? Right? If he's reaching everybody because he's the perfect evangelist, then what's your job? That's why God has not given. That's why none of us are perfect. None of us are going to be perfect because we're all sinners. But that's why God needs, or tells everybody, yeah, he doesn't need it. He calls us all to come together and work together, because there's people I will never be able to reach, but you can. There's people that they would not want to listen to me for a heartbeat, so they're not going to learn, but they'll learn from you, right? And it's the way we are. It's people. People are different, but those differences, they're not a bad thing. They just remind us that we have to work together and come together. So being a functioning member. All right. See y'all for chapter 2.